which is so weird. All right. All right, so Odie Osbourne and Jerome Rivera. This fight is a featherweight fight. The odds for the fight minus 220, I believe, for Odie Osbourne. Literally only one odds makers out there making odds for this fight. Started at minus 270 and now went way up to minus 220. Jerome Rivera at plus 185. I'm gonna say it right now before I really get into the prediction. Look at this. Jerome Rivera last fight to Francisco Figueiredo literally 2 weeks ago. Before that, losing to Tyson Nam by knockout. Look at which division he's in. The flyweight division. Odie Osbourne was in the bantamweight division, moving up to the featherweight division, trying to actually bulk his body up to the perfect size in the featherweight division. Jerome Rivera is taking this fight on 4 or 5 days notice, maybe even 3 days notice. I'm not really sure. But he's a flyweight. And he's taking a featherweight fight, probably because after the fight with Francisco Figueiredo, he kind of bulked up a little bit, because you got to make the weight cut down to the flyweight division once you actually get a fight. But since this fight's on 5 days' notice, he's not going to be in as good a shape as Odie Osbourne is, because he's actively training to become a featherweight fighter for the fight against Denis Bonder. But Jerome Rivera is not. He's coming off a flyweight loss to Francisco Figueiredo, so that is definitely a good advantage to have for Odie Osbourne. Very small reach advantage there for Jerome Rivera, pretty small there. He has a pretty good height advantage, 5'10" inches tall. But Odie Osbourne in this fight, if the fight is on the feet, I'm saying it right now, considering the last 2 fights from Jerome Rivera, he hasn't really done very good on the feet. Getting knocked out from Tyson Nam by TKO, and then losing a UD to Francisco Figueiredo, kind of getting dominated on the ground. Not really submission-wise, because we all know Jerome Rivera has some pretty good submission skills, but he was kind of getting laid on by Francisco Figueiredo in their last fight, and pretty much lost that fight 30-27, 29-28. I'm not really sure what these scorecards were for that fight, but it was a pretty dominant win for Francisco Figueiredo. Odie Osbourne coming off a loss to Brian Kelleher. Okay, maybe the same thing happens, because he lost that fight by guillotine choke submission. Maybe the same thing happens. Odie Osbourne goes for a takedown on Jerome Rivera. Jerome Rivera latches into a guillotine choke. Maybe he wins the fight by guillotine. That is definitely a possibility. But Odie Osbourne, 29 years old, in the prime of his career, basically in the prime of his career. Jerome Rivera is only 26 years old, basically. As I said before, flyweight, featherweight. Definitely a huge advantage there for Odie Osbourne. If you look at how Odie Osbourne actually wins his fights, 2 wins by KO, TKO, 5 wins by submission. Right there, 5 wins by submission. Both of these guys have pretty good submission skills, and then 1 win by decision. His 3 losses, 2 by submission. That should scare you a little bit because, again, Jerome Rivera has some pretty good submission skills, so I would not be surprised if Jerome Rivera goes out there and gets a submission on Odie Osbourne, but again, I don't think we're going to see a finish in the fight. I think this one's going to go all the way. His other loss by decision, and then Jerome Rivera, if you look at how he wins and loses his fights, let's see right now. 7 wins by submission, no wins by knockout. Doesn't have the best striking, doesn't have the best power in his hands. Mainly it's wins by submission, which is the main way that Odie Osbourne is losing his fight. So that could play a factor that Jerome Rivera goes out there and gets a submission on Odie Osbourne. 3 wins by decision for Jerome Rivera. Not bad as well. Oh, we forgot the losses. Let's check the losses for Jerome Rivera. 2 losses by knockout, okay. Odie Osbourne definitely has the power advantage, so considering got knocked out twice, could see a knockout from Odie Osbourne. 1 loss by submission. You're going to get a loss by submission every now and then. Decision loss. And then he has 3 fights inside the 2 fights inside the UFC, 1 fight on Dana White's Contender Series. Some fights inside the LFA. Lost 1 fight to Brandon Royval, Roberto Sanchez, Tyson Nam, and Francisco Figueiredo. Not the worst competition to be losing to. He's a pretty good grappler. Not the best striker. Odie Osbourne is definitely going to have the advantage on the feet. And most likely, if the fight stays on the feet, he's going to win 30-27. If the fight goes to the ground, I expect the one that's going to be bringing the fight to the ground would be Odie Osbourne at first. The first round and the middle of the second round would probably be Odie Osbourne trying to get the fight to the ground or keeping the fight on the feet, and then hoping Jerome Rivera gets latched into a takedown. Odie Osbourne goes in for a takedown on Jerome Rivera and kind of tries to do what Francisco Figueiredo did in their last fight. If we see that fight, the fight statistics for that last fight, let's check. Jerome Rivera, Francisco Figueiredo. So Francisco Figueiredo had 4 takedowns in the fight, went 4 out of 6 on his takedown attempts. 0 out of 5 of Jerome Rivera's takedown attempts were actually successful, so, I mean, I don't really see Jerome Rivera going for a takedown on Odie Osbourne. Maybe it could happen, but most likely Odie Osbourne, if there's going to be a takedown, if there's going to be ground game involved in this fight, it's going to be Odie Osbourne initiating that, trying to do what Francisco Figueiredo did in their last fight. Takedown, keeping the fight on the ground, and trying to win a decision, or keeping the fight on the feet and winning a decision that way. But there is that possibility that even if Odie Osbourne gets the fight on the ground, he has to be a little bit careful for the guillotine choke. He lost 1 fight to Brian Kelleher in his last fight by guillotine choke. When was that? 6 months ago? No. It was like a year ago. Jesus. That was like a year ago. That's crazy. But he definitely has to be a little bit cautious to get caught from his guillotine choke submission from Jerome Rivera. But most likely, Jerome Rivera is not going to get the submission. The fight's going to go all the way. Odie Osbourne on the feet is going to win the fight on the feet. Probably outlanding Jerome Rivera by 10, 15 strikes in the whole entire fight, in my opinion. If the fight goes to the ground, I expect, as I said before, Odie Osbourne is going to be initiating that, getting the fight to the ground, and controlling Jerome Rivera, just like Francisco Figueiredo did in their last fight. So overall, I think wherever the fight goes, really, unless Jerome Rivera gets the fight on top of Odie Osbourne, which I think is a little bit unlikely, I think Odie Osbourne is going to control the fight on the ground and control the fight on the feet. So that is why I have Odie Osbourne winning this fight by UD. But yeah, what do you guys think is going to happen in this fight? In the comment section, put who you guys think is going to win between Jerome Rivera and Odie Osbourne. Alright, so that is my other prediction.